Hi, everyone, and welcome. This is our week 2 live classroom. So, not sure if anyone ever will come to this. I know it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon Central Standard Time, but I'm not sure if a lot of people are working from home with all this shelter in place. But if you do come, that'd be great, because then we can have some live question and answer sessions as well as just to discuss your project. So feel free to join in. That way you can discuss kind of like a one-on-one with your project as you're going through it. That's one advantage to being here as well as, but if this time and date does not work for you, let me know. So maybe I can rearrange the time schedule and date schedule to make it more convenient for any of you or all of you. So this is being recorded though, as you know, so make sure to view it and then turn in the keyword by Sunday midnight Central Standard Time. So week 2. Now I went over week 1. Grades are already done. So I see some great starts for your projects. Fantastic. It was really great to see and a good handle on the environments you're going to use. A lot of Azure and Azure Database, which is actually Michael SQL Server, Microsoft SQL Server, which is now coined as Azure Database as well, being that Microsoft owns Azure. So also, there was a MySQL option somebody's going to be using as well. And most of you are using the Java, no, not Java, I'm sorry, the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript to make it just a database-driven website, which is fine because these are apps. And anyway, browser, for the browser. I'm not sure if you wanted to make it specific for any type of mobile device, but at this point, it looks like it's just going to be mobile browser friendly, which is fine. Somebody did mention Bootstrap. So in this week 2 assignment, the week 2 resources, I did include some additional resources on everything you said you all will be using. And so feel free if that helps you. If you need more or have some of your own that you want to share with the class, that would be great. So a lot of good work. And also do know you can always submit your assignments. Assignments can be submitted, revised, and resubmitted for more credit up until the last day of class. So I hope you do know this. And a couple of things that came up were references. Yes, always, you will always need references for the transferable skill assignment. Start gathering them now because you're going to compile everything into one integrated portfolio paper at the end of the session. So you might as well start gathering all that now. It is part of the rubrics that I posted in the course home announcements. And also the week announcements, assignment announcement in the discussion forums. So that's where they are. As to if it's the entire rubrics for the all rubrics. That last rubric, there's one more intensive rubric that's used for the last submission for your transferable skills portfolio. So that one do pay attention to. But weekly, it's a matter of, yes, APA format, good discussion on what it is you are talking about and also references, because it's important that you start gathering your references and know the websites or the leading experts to go to when you're going to need to know information, because as you know, technology changes. It's very quick, it's very dynamic. So when you are in a workplace, you'll have to know how to get the latest and greatest information. You can't expect to be trained in the workplace, or they're going to expect you just to know it and be up on top of it. And also using references in APA format, I can't stress that as well, because a lot of companies have online presence, right? So they have articles, they have blogs, they have wikis. This way you can contribute to them if you know how to write articles that can be published online. So this is a great way to start learning and, safe practice environment. But if you learn how to organize and formulate your ideas into well-formulated paragraphs and a paper at the end, and also have APA formatted citations and references, that's typically what is needed and required for any publication online for articles and so forth. And I can't stress this as well. Hopefully you have an online site already for yourself, be it creating your own website or using LinkedIn as a portfolio-based website, just to start putting your material out there that you've been completing and doing. And this one is great, especially the transferable skill and, of course, project is kind of culmination of everything you learned throughout your degree program. So what a better way to showcase all that you've done. So be meticulous with your documentation now because, again, this is something you can offer prospective employers. So the well-documented and thought-out processes that you illustrate in your deliverables here can then be uploaded online to your website or your professional networking website, whatever you're going to use, to showcase your skills, not only your skills of what you can produce, but also the processes that you follow to produce them, because that is something that is very important for employers to see how you do work, how do you think, what are the strategies you formulate, and how do you continue on and actually implement them. So very, very important information for prospective employers or current employers if you want to switch departments or get get a promotion or an upgrade or, what have you. So yeah, the more you put into your projects here in this class, even your discussion posts, the more material you will have formulated and be able to present for your professional career. Okay, so week 2, what are we doing in week 2? You are creating now the home screen and database for the project. So a lot of you already have your logo, which is great, and I saw good outlines and scheduling that you're going to be having for your projects, as well as there was flow charts, there's UML diagrams. So a lot of good thought out processes already in place. That was very important. The better you plan out week 1, the better you're going to go forward in this project, and the less frustration you're going to experience because you're going to have it all thought out, ready to go. And once you have a good plan, it's just a matter of rote to make your plan, come to fruition. So it's the planning stage that's very important. So some of you may need to do some more detailed thought on your projects. This way, then you'll have already the framework and the path or flow that you need to follow for these upcoming weeks. So you're going to do this project, code the project, and test it. So home screens, database, and there's always going to be two submissions for the assignments. You can submit everything to both assignments if you wish, because they're really not separate. I mean, creating your home screen and testing your home screen can all be together in one document that you just submit for both assignments. That's fine, because as long as you're already in the mode of copying and pasting things to a source document, you might as well keep going, right? Because you already know that your project works, and instead of separating it into 2 separate deliverables. So just paste your source code, your screenshot of your home screen, your database tables. You can have your database loaded already with fictitious information, any kind of designs if you did any queries, entity relational diagrams, and then testing of it successfully. And also you may want to test it and show what happens if your home screen does not work properly, like 3 times you're out. What do you do if somebody is typing in the wrong login credentials? And also you have to keep another database to store your login credentials as well. Typically you wouldn't keep it together with the data. You'd have a separate one because it has to be more secure, and you typically will limit access to this database for only login IDs and passwords. So I'm not sure if you thought of that when you were thinking of creating this password or your home screen and then login. So the home screen, again, could just be a splash screen. It could just show the different elements to the program, but eventually you should have a login and credential screen as well. Okay, so these are the objectives. Now, again, so your discussion question answers should be on Tuesday or before, and then reply on Saturday before. The more, the better. But at least 3 posts. So do know this. I still saw some people only posting twice. I am changing the requirements. I am requiring that you post your answer and reply to at least 2 classmates. More is better, right? And then your project and transferable skills are due on Sundays, and then a required live classroom After you view the recording, you will submit the keyword and get credit by Sunday as well. So there's no extensions on discussion questions because they are really time sensitive. They must be completed within the time of the week they're assigned. So make sure if you did not do 3 posts, make sure to do 3 posts moving forward because you lost points on that. And I did mention this from the beginning, and it is in the rubrics. So what may be on a page, again, the course shell is created by the course development team, and I, as the professor or the facilitator of this course, can make, minor changes, and that's what I am doing. So it's important to follow more so my requirements and my announcements so that you make sure that if there's any change to what's in the course shell, that you then comply accordingly. Okay, so great discussion. I appreciate your support and encouragement. Please post your assignments and whatever work you do, post it in the classroom. Let everybody see your work because it's all going to be different and you all can learn from each other. It's like virtually learning other people's assignments and projects. So please feel free to post all your work and all your assignments so that others can benefit from that in this class, and also you can benefit from others' posts in the classroom as well. The collaborative environment, and that's typically what's in a programming community. So it's very common to do this. So this is a great way to get in the habit of doing that because you learn great team skills. You learn how to collaborate and just discuss different ideas with your classmates or your cohorts, Okay, so week 2 discussion is talking about enterprise architecture's role. Not only must they keep track of IT concerns, but also those of the business through the work performed on strategic initiatives. Enterprise architects, sometimes they're called business analysts. Every company has a different title for this person's role. So depending where you work, it can have a variety of names. Enterprise architect, business analyst are kind of 2 common ones. But in general, or systems analyst as well, sometimes it all depends how big a company is and how many of these roles you can have. It may be one person doing a variety of roles, but it's making sure that the business mission and goals merge with what IT is doing. So they are evident, they are achieved, the needs requirements are met successfully, so that the business goals and the IT implementations are the same. So there actually is a way to take your business goals and convert them into business cases, which is then converted into use cases for modeling of an IT system. So there is a clear connection there, and I'll type this in the chat. So you would go from business case or goals, business goals and objectives, okay, to business case, to UML. I'm going to put UML because Unified Modeling Language, because these are the visual representations and standards that are used to visually represent. Then you have use cases, and then that's how you would then be able to go into your formulate the use cases to formulate your objects for your system development, design and development. Okay. So it's being able to have this clear connection between the business goals, business case, use case, business use case, and UML use cases, and then system design and development. So you want to be able to always go from one to the other, and they have to be, successfully illustrated from each stage and step. So that's what they're talking about, moving from architecture to functionality. Kind of goes from the UML use cases. The architecture here, I think it was more really specific for your project. Some of you took it into a general or generic definition as to how, in theory, it may exist for a company, but it also was to represent just you. How are you moving? What are you doing? You kind of specified your architecture, right? You already specified what type of application you're going to create, was it mobile or web-based, and your environment, your development platform, Azure, your database, your programming languages, or I should say scripting languages. So that's part of your architecture, right? So then how do you go moving from that? You identified everything you're going to use, right? How do you then start going into functionality, which is like the implementation, the coding phases? So it's a matter of, a lot of you already put this in as part of your project plans and your scheduling, which is great. But in general, for the diagrams, I think it's keeping to the diagrams. You kind of go to a high level design of your system, and then you just keep getting more detailed into a lower level design to the point where you just get a flow chart for a particular program, or you have a class hierarchy for a particular program. And that would kind of somehow resemble your business use cases, right? When you have objects, you have business objects similar to, class objects, and it's representing the one that's in the real world and how it functions and how it's represented in the real world, translated to how it's going to be actually used in your program. So right now, you're using just your databases to create your entities. There's nobody actually using any object-oriented programming languages where you're going to be creating your own class hierarchies, from what I gathered from all your designs that you put forth. So then you're going to rely then, since you're not really using your own class hierarchy, you want to do then your entity relationship diagrams. Okay, so entity, again, new keyboard, so I got to go slow. I'm going to take this keyboard, unhook it, and get back to my other one. Okay, entity relationship diagram. Hopefully you've had a database class, so you kind of know what this means. But this is what you would use then to represent your business use cases to your entity relationship diagram, right? You're going to have your entities, which are your tables, or your objects within your tables, and what are the relationships between these tables. That's how you're going to represent your business goals, objectives, and functionality. So the architecture is the underlying programming, the software that you're going to use. And then you're going to, one thing you have to make sure is also keep in the back of your mind, how will you know if what you're creating successfully meets what you want it to do? You can create a lot of stuff, but does it actually represent the business mission, business objectives, the business goals? How will you know? I mean, you can create a system that successfully operates, but if it doesn't do what the company needs it to do, then there's a mismatch there, right? And some of the things where you can see where this functionality is very important is the types of reports that are created. And when you create a report, this is just whatever you're going to display on the screen. If you're going to do queries, perhaps you have search options in your application. So you're going to have to do a search query, and the results that are generated. Are they generated correctly? Will they display the information that whomever is using your system needs? And will they display it in a way that is user-friendly and allows them to be efficient and productive in their job or in their work, whatever they're using it for, if it's a customer or if it's an employee? You want it to be representing everything that they need at that moment. So this is part of your design, right? You can't do a query on a particular field if that field doesn't exist. The classic example is I'm including, an address for a customer, and it contains their street address, their city, state, and zip code in one field. Now, that's a classic example of something not to do, because what if you wanted to get a list of all the customers in a particular zip code? You can't if all that information is in one field. So determining all these fields right now will be based on the type of queries you need, the type of reports you need. So if you need to have a report that's going to list out customers by zip code, then zip code has to be a separate field. If it's going to be by city, then city has to be a separate field, okay? If it's going to be first, last name, right? Sometimes people prefer put first name, last name as a name in one field. That you don't do, because what if typical when you see a list of people's names, they're in order of last name. So you can't do that if you put the first name and last name in the same field. So these are just some basic database best practices and standards. So as you are creating this now, since you are just doing databases and simple web applications and displays, you have to then make sure that your database is designed in such a fashion that it can then represent everything that you want or it's going to be used for whatever it's going to be used. So that's very important. So that's kind of part of moving from architecture to functionality. You have to make sure that the design you're going to implement will be able to have the functionality that you need for those desired goals. So that's part of your needs requirements. And that's sometimes your business analyst, your enterprise architect, all kinds of names. Business architect, systems analysis, a lot of names depending on the company, but it's a matter of making sure it's a higher level view of what your system's going to do and what it needs to do based on the business goals and objectives. There are a couple of you in the discussion this week. You started putting out diagrams. Diagrams are very important. That's how you see how things flow. That's why the entity relationship diagram is very important as well, because you have to know how the data is going to flow for at least, your entities, your business objects, whatever they may be. And then they have to flow in the sense that so that you can render the results that you need when you need them. So depending on what kind of diagrams you want to give, diagrams are important. But again, you're the programmer, you're the designer, so you need to work with your own logic. But do share. That's how we can learn from each other, how everyone else is doing it, and just as you maybe forgot something and said, oh yeah, I forgot to put that in there. So, share information with each other so that you all can just have stellar projects at the end. Just collaborate. There's a lot of brainstorming is very, very useful and very much encouraged in this class. So again, your reply. So again, please have references. Always, always, always research your answers. Always, always, always. I'm going to tell you, any application that you want to create, I bet you there's a similar example somewhere online. Start getting those. Start looking for those diagrams. Business use cases. Look up business use cases for a particular app. Look up for architecture diagram for a particular app. Look for, all of this is online. You can even find ERDs for apps that are out there. The manufacturers will have all these technical specifications on their website for their particular apps. It's just a matter of correctly entering the keyword to know how to find it. So if you want to look up ERDs, make sure to put ERD. If you want to look up, modules or, class hierarchies, make sure to add that as part of your keyword search. And then, as I mentioned, some of you still only did one reply. So do know it going forward, you have to reply to at least 2 classmates plus your discussion answer. So it has to be at least 3 posts. Okay, so hopefully you'll do that. And again, really take time to view the references that your classmate put in. Also use the discussion forum for questions. Any questions on your strategies, any questions on your programs, any questions on your application. All this brainstorming can also be in the same discussion forum. It's not just limited to the one discussion question and your answer and replies. You can have any kind of conversation related to your projects here in this discussion forum. I even have extra threads. I mean, if you wanted to put it in a particular thread, there's one thread if you want to just discuss the assignments. There's another thread if you want to discuss your strategies in your course project. So, and please do post. Hopefully I'm going to see your posts of your designs. Please post your designs your assignments that you submitted for week 1. Please post them in the week 2 discussion forum. Please share this because this is how you can get a better in-depth discussion of your project with your classmates. And that will help. That's your brainstorming session. Okay, so now eliciting needs requirements. Did you even think about that? I know you said, I would like an app to do this. I think this would be a cool app because I think this is good to have. So whatever. Now, I don't know if necessarily only what you want is the best judge of how your project should work. So that's why it's important to throw it out there with the rest of your classmates, because what are their thoughts on what you're saying? You may like it, but they may say, hey, it would be also nice to have this because this is the way I'm used to doing things. Remember, everybody's individual. They all have different ways of navigating systems. They all have different way of navigating is, I guess, a good point, or the different types of interactions that they have with an application. Sometimes they're buttons, sometimes there's menu options, sometimes shortcuts. Everybody has different ways that they like to go through. There's advanced users, there's beginning users. So you have to accommodate all of this when you are creating an application. It's just not you. You cannot design for the designer. You always have to design for the user. And you have to incorporate facilities for advanced users as well as facilities for beginning users or basic users. The computer literacy is important as to how you fashion your program and how many ways you have in accessing your program. So that's where, when you're doing this eliciting needs requirements, part of it would be understanding your target market, your customer base. Who are the people that are going to be using it? What are their computer literacies and skill levels? So where would you get all this information? Here is just something, an example. You have users, managers, executives, programmers, other BAs. This is business analysts, old system, and the web or the internet. So a lot of areas, right? Because you have to kind of incorporate all these different viewpoints, perspectives, and what is it they would need. Obviously, you're going to look at who's using it and whoever using it, what are their characteristics, what do they want. So a lot of ways of doing this. I mean, you can do questionnaires, you can do surveys, you can do interviews, a lot of gathering techniques to get information on these needs. But you should have a basic understanding of who's this for, or who's the target market, and do some research on that. Again, it's just going to make you that much, better versed when you get into the workplace, right? You're going to already be able to identify a demographic. Use demographic information. It's a great way, too, as well, to understand people. So demographics are a great way to understand target markets and the way they do stuff. So look at the statistics that are out there. What are the different platforms people use? How do they access things? How do they want to access things? What are the different computer literacies? And it gives you a better understanding of how you need to create your application. Obviously, if you're going to create it, you want it to be successful. But here's some fun little slide here. What it means is if you ever do any consulting or if you're ever part of a team that's creating something for a customer or a client or an employee, right, or for use, sometimes they don't know what they want, right? So you have to kind of understand yourself what the purpose is, what's the business going to use it. That's why it's important to look at business goals and missions, because not everybody's technical. They maybe not know what a software tool can do. They just know what they're used to using, but they didn't know that it could have this kind of capability or that kind of capability. So also, you could listen to users and what they want, but sometimes what they want is maybe not feasible. So another type of study that you always do is a feasibility study. I mean, this is in the early stages. You kind of know what is feasible, what do you have a capacity to create. And hopefully the feasibility study here, we kind of did in the sense that you kind of wanted to make sure that the program you're creating was feasible to do within the time limits we have, only 5.5 weeks, and also your skill level. That's why I was saying in the week one live classroom, don't overextend yourself. Use what you're comfortable with, use what you know. I mean, you can challenge yourself, but do know you have a limited amount of time to learn something depending on your learning curve, and also to make sure that you use it flawlessly so by the end you have a successfully running application. So you kind of did already a feasibility study. And demographics you kind of did. So some of this is inherent because you kind of just, when you are thinking of an application and when you have a time frame to put it in, you're kind of going to just naturally go into these type of thought processes, hopefully, unless you're an idealist and optimist. But this is kind of just a way, it's realistic view of the process. So just a fun clip here, but this is just so true. You'll have users that want so many things. And part of any application, you always want to have a facility to deal with users' feedback. Always, always, always. Feedback is very important. You want to get user feedback from the beginning. The more they're in charge of it from the beginning, because if they are the ones that are going to be using it, right, you kind of want to make sure you're going to give them what they want, and in a way that's useful to them, and in a way that makes them efficient and productive. So that's kind of the overall goal when you're going to be doing this in a professional or commercial capacity. So your week 2 project, you're going to create a home screen and a database, and then you're going to test it. Again, you can have all of this put into one document and submitted into both assignments, which is fine. I really would prefer that. You just put everything together, because I'll be able to see it once and just give you credit for both assignments at the same time. So please do. I would really appreciate it. And again, no zipped files, folders. Everything needs to be copied and pasted into a Word document. Your source code, your database tables, their definitions, or your SQL code, your data types. I want to see your fields, your tables, your data types. Very important. And then the actual database with data in it. And if you have any queries, your query design. And then the actual successful running of a query to show that it works and it does give the information that is needed. So all of that all can be put into screenshots and into the same document for an upload for your assignment. And you would upload it twice. Okay? So home screen, what is a home screen? It all depends what you're doing. If you're doing a mobile app, they're all different, and it's up to you how you want to design it. But one thing I know will be there, we will see it somewhere, is your logo or your badge or your icon that you created. Some of you said you enjoyed creating your icon and badge. It allows you to just kind of graphically represent in a very, illustrative way what your app was about or what your company was about. And it's always nice to be able to do that because you're branding it, right? And you're kind of owning it because it is your brand now and your logo. So it kind of gives you a sense of pride in what you're creating from there. And then that's one thing you would have there, right? But then you also typically will have the different kind of maybe actions that your application can do. So, depending on what you wanted to do. A lot of you said it's going to allow customers to search something. You're going to search some kind of database and then display the results. So I don't know if anybody had anything where the user could enter stuff other than search criteria. So it pretty much was search criteria and then offering the search results. I think some though did allow you then to also input information, some statistics, and then it would keep a record for you. So yeah, it's always great, right? When you deal with a database, you want people to be able to add, or update, search, and I don't know if you want to give them capacity to delete items. But again, that's another issue too. If you're going to have anything through the database, you're going to have different levels of access, right? You're going to have administrative access. You're maybe just going to have viewing access. You're going to have some that can edit access, all different types of access. But that's something very important when it comes to database security, database design, and database administrator, and data governance and database governance. So all that's very, very important in a commercial setting. But for our purposes, again, this is a course project. But the more you consider this, and the more you make note of it, and if you're going to offer this to a prospective employer, then knowing that you are having these types of considerations are very, very helpful in showing your maturity in how you're approaching applications from a business sense point of view, right? Security is always important, and following mandates and laws are very important. Privacy issues, right? Customer privacy issues. How private is it? So just being aware of it. You don't have to put all that into your course project. We only have 5.5 weeks, but being aware of it from a commercial point of view is important, right? When you're talking from a business. Always think about the business side of things too, because when you are working for an employer, you're working for a business, and they have rules and laws that they have to follow. And you definitely don't want to cause a company a lawsuit because of something you did incorrectly. It's definitely not something you want to do. Um, so here's your, your design. It's up to you. I mean, use best practices and standards. I mean, a lot of it is the tiled, right? The tiled buttons. That's what you see a lot of when it comes to the designs these days because they're mobile friendly, right? Some of you are talking bootstrap too, but you can have something that then shows like a series or a grid when it's being viewed through a laptop or a desktop view or web view. And then when it's a mobile, it'll go down to singular tiles, which then fits best your mobile screen. So that or your smartphone screen. So that's really the most popular way things are being done now. So do you want to follow things that are common and trendy at the moment? For the most part, yeah, because that's what users are used to. That's what they're using, and it's a way for them to adapt faster and to like faster and know intuitively faster how to use your app. And that makes for happy customers faster. Okay. Login screen, yes. You want it to have ID, password, verification, separate database. Number of times before getting logged out. So these are concerns for your login screen. I do recommend you do create a login screen. I'm not sure if it's part of the requirements. I knew the home screen is, but I think you should you should know how to do this, right? Because every database application typically does have this. You know, depending how far in advance you want to get. Do you want them to get locked out? Before, you know, how many times do you want them to do it before getting locked out? Then they have to contact an administrator, or you know, as you're testing it, you're gonna just try what does work. But if it doesn't work, you want to also show that the message. I mean, don't get so caught up. Again, 5.5 weeks. So just have it working. You can simplify it and just say, hey, you're just gonna trust everybody's gonna just type in correctly what they're supposed to type in. And that works. You can hard code in the password and login ID into your code. That's fine too. We're not all getting caught up on this. You need to have just a complete successful project at the end of this course. You can always enhance it later, but I think you've already done courses where you've kind of looked at this in depth. So you should already be aware of all of that. If anything, just look when you are interacting on the internet and are interacting with different applications, what are you seeing out there? What do you like? What don't you like? What doesn't work? What does work? So use your own research and your own sense of what's out there when you are then considering of how you're going to design what you have for yourself. Okay, we're talking about databases, so different things, right? You have to create tables, fields, data types, masks, formats, conditional rules, queries, SQL, forms, reports. So, yeah, all of this has to be designed. So this is what I want to see for your assignment this week. I want to see screenshots of this. Whatever database management system you're using and how in-depth you are creating this. For sure, you're going to have tables, fields, and data types. That's for sure. And you should have queries, right? A lot of you are doing some kind of a searching capacity, so you're going to have queries as well. And SQL. Now, forms and reports can be different. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the same. You may be creating them. I think some of you are using JavaScript or maybe simple JavaScript forms. I don't know. Or you might, somebody said they're using their database management system facilities for forms and reports. That's fine. You know, whatever you want to use works for me. But just make sure the screenshots, make sure you show it empty without data. And then afterward, what happens when you do enter data and a successful rendering of a result in whatever capacity. If it's a search text box that the search, you know, somebody types in a value and it does, click a button and the results are up here. So show me the stages, screenshots of all those stages to illustrate that they work. So I was going to maybe talk more about this if somebody was here live about it, but hopefully you are familiar with all of these components and use best practice and standards, right? Data types, you only make something a number if you can do calculations. If you're not going to use it as a number, then you're going to use it as either text, alphanumeric, or varchar, because numbers take more space than characters. Fields, make sure first name and last name are separate fields, but don't have a separate field for middle name. Not useful. Addresses, make sure you have a street address, city, state, zip code as separate fields, right? tables, make sure you separate out your information. You don't keep the customer and all the product information in one table. You're going to separate that out. So make sure you use database best practices and standards. So I'm going to type in, the keyword is going to be ERD because I want you, keyword is ERD. So because ERD, entity relationship diagram, you need to have an understanding of this, and this is going to have you have a successful database that's created. So the keyword is ERD, and that stands for entity relationship diagram. And it's important that you have this so that you make sure when you design your database, it's designed properly and it will function properly. And field sizes. Make sure you change field sizes. There's no reason to take 255 spaces. Remember, for our purposes, you only have some records, right? But if a company has 1 million records, space is an issue. So really consider the number and character needed for field sizes. Don't extend them when they are not necessarily need to have them that way. I mean, some are already standard set up, like date format. I mean, if you use date format, it's great because it automatically does some data error checking for you, as well as has the fixed size. But do take consideration. I mean, there are like some standards for if you have a first name, last name. Last name is more important than first name, so you typically want as much as the last name as possible in your field. Zip code. Make sure you allow for the additional postal code, and also allow for growth. If it's international, what are other countries? What are their zip code formats? Make sure you accommodate that. For phone numbers, make sure you accommodate country codes, not just typical United States telephone number. You want to allow for future growth because this way, if in case you expand, you don't have to redo your database, right? You never want to be able to have to redo your database. You want to have it accommodate your future growth seamlessly. So take that into consideration as well. Okay. And then all your relationships. Yes, it's another thing. You need primary keys, foreign keys. So how are tables related? Two tables are related if one of the fields are the same in each table. It'll be a key field in one table, but it's not going to be a key field in the second table. It's going to be a foreign key, but it's going to be the key that is going to be related on, right? So say you have a customer table and then you have an order table. So you'll have a customer ID in the customer table, but also you'll have a customer ID in the order table because you want to associate that order with a particular customer. But the order table, the key field will be order ID, not customer ID because it's an order. But you would have customer ID in both tables because that's how you relate the customer with their order. And then there's something as many-to-many. Now, many-to-many relationships cannot be facilitated by relational database systems or relational object database system. They have to be broken down into one-to-many. So you'd have like a bridge table. So you have when you have a many-to-many relationship, that will always turn into 3 tables. Okay, so 3 tables equate a many-to-many relationship. So very important to do that as well. So referential integrity, that's very important too, right? What does that deal with? That deals with, well, if you have one table, say you have that customer ID in your customer table, but that customer ID is also in your order table. So when the customer ID is updated in your customer table, make sure you have facilities that automatically will update it in the order table, right? That's what this referential integrity is about, and it could be cascade updates and similarly deletes. So something you have to make sure. You always want your database accurate, and if you have some fields in more than one table, you have to make sure when it's changed in one table that it follows suit and changed in the rest of them. Otherwise, you're going to have a very corrupt database. So something that you need to also take care of when you are creating your databases. Here's an ERD, an example entity relationship diagram, and this has a lot of information, right? It has the field names, it has the data types, but I see something wrong right now. It's a name. All of this, the author has a name, publisher has a name. That's wrong, right? It should have a first name and a last name. And also the sizes. Look at these sizes. Varchar 255. These should not be 255 because they definitely are not that large. Okay, so this is a bad ERD. Bad ERD. So don't do this. Um, Names should have a first name and a last name. You should slim down the amount of characters allowed. Like sometimes first name is only 10 characters and last name maybe 25. Very common. How about state? If you have a state in your address, you're going to have what? 2 letters, right? It could be you want to limit and control data entry. It helps eliminate error. Okay, so this is a bad ERD. I'm going to write this in here, a bad ERD. Okay, because look at all these errors. Address is not split up into street address, city, state, zip. Name is not split up into first name and last name. URL is an integer. Now that's interesting, right? If you're going to put characters in there, what's going to happen? They're expecting you to put the actual DNS URL in there, but it's not going to be so. Let's see. So a lot of errors in this. Again, it's the names, very common, jump out here. And also ID. Don't ever leave anything as just ID. ID is not descriptive enough. Stay at the table, it's an ID for. Okay, so shopping basket ID rather than just ID, for example. Okay. But there is a bridge table here between customer and shopping basket book. That's a bridge table. Shopping basket is a bridge table, but again, it's not descriptive enough in the field. So make sure you don't do something like this. And then the database testing, yes. So you're going to have to test your home screen, test your database. What are you going to test for? Well, make sure that it does what it's supposed to do, right? If you have queries, test your queries. I mean, this is more advanced for a commercial database, right? You're going to check schema, tables, triggers. You want it to stress it to see the performance. That's very important, especially if you have database-driven websites, right? You don't want to have a customer sit for a half hour waiting for a result for their query when they're just searching for a particular product or an item, right? You want to have some kind of speed there. So performance is of an issue. There are ways to help increase performance, and that would be like having index tables that will then quickly get information faster, or so there's different strategies here. I don't know if we're going to be concerned with this at this point, but hopefully you did address this when you took a database class. That'd be great. So integrity, we do know, right? You want to make sure, like the customer ID, if it's in one table and another table, make sure if it's changed in one table, it's changed in the other table. It's very important. So that's very important, consistency and integrity of data. And also you want to make sure that you can access the information, right? You want to make sure you have enough tables, but they're linked properly. That's very important to make sure that you have a customer table, an order table, and a product table, right? The product contains information on the products that are part of the order, but you want to make sure that they're all linked so you can have a customer ID and be able to pick up all the products that they ordered. Have a search query for that. So, very important that all your tables are linked. Don't ever have a table there in a database all by itself because it's never going to be useful. Okay, so at this point I would ask if there was any questions, but hopefully bring your questions into the classroom and the discussion forums. That's what they're there for. Please use the forums more than emailing me because when I'm going to answer, I'd rather be able to answer in the discussion forum so everybody can see the answer so that it can help more people than just you in case it is an issue that other people may have. So I really encourage that you put all in the discussion forums your questions so that the answer then can be beneficial for the entire class. Okay, so what are we talking about here? We're talking about FTPs. Do we use FTPs? That's a possibility, yes. When you have a lot of heavy-duty uploads, typically you use some kind of FTP server, which eliminates all of the graphical user interface. I mean, it's just a faster way of transferring information. So this is something you're going to be exploring for your transferable skill, week 2. Again, make sure you put references. They are required. And you're going to be talking about all these different protocols. So FTP, file transfer protocol, HTTP, Hypertext Transfer Protocol, the Transport Protocol, depending on which, how old or early your page is that you're looking at for the definition. Simple MIME Transfer Protocol, TCP, IP, Internet Protocol, and Transfer Control Protocol. So different types of protocols, but that's important, right? Data transmission is based on protocols because protocols are patterns of bits, binary digits, and it's these patterns that when they are sent from one end to the other end, it's this pattern that is looked at, and then it determines what program is started to handle the data that's coming through. If it's HTTP, then the other receiving end knows they have to start a browser because a browser understands HTTP. If it's SMTP, then when that comes across, they see that pattern of bits or that protocol for SMTP and knows that, oh, I have to start up an email server, okay, service. If it's TCP/IP, again, that is Internet Protocol. So this tells the receiving computer what program or service needs to be started to understand the rest of the information that's coming through. That's that entire OSI model. So something that maybe you want to maybe know or you've already looked at it and know. So OSI model, something important to look at because it talks about these levels of transmission, data transmission. But FTP is most commonly used to download a file from a server. If you are using and hosting, you typically will have another company that's going to be hosting your website, right? So you're going to be paying for this company's services. You're going to be using them as your host. Their servers are going to be where your website resides. And sometimes you have large files you want to upload, and sometimes it can time out. FTP kind of is a faster way of sending information to these servers so that you can then get them on your website or what have you, wherever it may go. So that's something for you to look at. And databases, right? You're using now that you're even creating databases. So something for you to explore. And also, indicate, have you ever used it? Go see if you can use one. Try to use one and see what happens. Okay, so I'm coming near end here. No questions. Nobody's here to ask questions, so I can't answer any questions. Maybe you can come someday. It would be great. I will post this in the classroom as soon as the recording is available. Again, there's a delay in recording these days because of the heavy load on web conferencing services. As soon as it is, I will post this the slides at least. You can look at that. But again, keyword is ERD. And please post in the forum with each other. You are all in this together. Help each other with each other's projects. If you know, help those who don't know. If you don't know, ask. That's how you're going to know. Collaborate. Bring in resources, videos, help each other. I mean, if it works good for you, offer it to your classmates and may help them as well. But it also gives you a way in the workplace. This allows you then to also be helpful to your coworkers, right? Or if you're on a team, how to disseminate information so everybody can learn things, right? Okay, so Sunday, we'll post a preview for the upcoming week. Typically, it looks like I'm being able to get grades done on Mondays. Again, you can submit and resubmit assignments one more time. The gradebook will only allow one extra additional upload. So best is make sure everything's correct when you upload it. But in case you by accident upload the wrong thing, you do have one extra time to upload again. But again, you can revise and resubmit so you for more credit, but only upload one more time based on feedback. But you can submit and revise and update one more time for more credit up until the last day of class. Only thing there's no extension on is our discussion questions. And I really want to say live lectures, but it seems like sometimes people don't have the time to sit and watch. So I'll let that go as well. But obviously they are time sensitive because they're dealing with the assignments and the material for that week. Okay. Have a great day, everyone, and wish you all the best. And I don't know where you are, but I have sun in my area finally after days and days of rain, but I'm happy to see that. But wish you all the best and see you in the classroom. Have a great day. Bye.